Check. Check, mic check. Hi, everyone. How are you guys doing? Hi, what's your name? Tak? You doing good? You good? Are you founder? No? Okay, so let's say his name's Tak and he's a founder. So let's say I asked him, how are you? One typical response that we get in the startup world, or rather this startup scene, we ask, hey, how are you doing? You're like, yeah, I'm killing it. My company just grew 800% month on month. We've got all these customers, but deep down inside, product's broken, your customers are leaking out, you got 2 months of runway left, your co-founder hates you, you just made a bad hire, that hire hates you. You go back home, maybe your partner or your spouse hates you, your pet hates you, and you don't even know whether you're supposed to be a founder or not. You think you want to give up, you want to wrap things up and go. I ask again, how are you doing? Oh yeah, we're thinking of maybe a bit of a bridge round, just thinking about a bridge round, you capture the growth opportunity, en route to our planned 20 million Series A. Killing it, everyone's doing great. So deep down inside, how great are we really doing? So I've got a couple of stories to share. Anyone from Vietnam in the crowd today? Okay, we've got a couple of Vietnamese represent. You guys, it's kind of dark. You guys recognize her, Toi Moi? So Toi is a Vietnamese founder. Her first startup was called Greengar, and then her second one was called Tappy, which was acquired by Weeby. It's a 500 startups company. Here, I went to visit her last month because she was, apart from selling a company, she also discovered that she has 4th stage lung cancer at the age of 32. So I'm flying there to LA, we're visiting, we're catching up. She's spending her time right now trying to elevate the quality of cancer care in Vietnam. Second story for you. This is a founder retreat organized by Tony Hsieh and 500 startups. So Tony Hsieh is the founder of Zappos, built the company and sold it to Amazon for $1 billion. He has this Vegas tech fund, which invests in a lot of companies. So of course at 500, we invest in a lot of companies too. We organized this conference just for founders to take a weekend off in Vegas. And we had tracks, panels talking about fundraising, talking about growth hacking, all kinds of good stuff. But all of the conversations went back to founder sanity, founder wellness, founder psychology. All of them were talking about the incident that happened where one of the founders, within our portfolio by the way, he had a $100 million+ company, his wife didn't know it, the investors didn't know it. One day he just took a gun and shot himself in the mouth. So it's our second case of founder suicide within the portfolio. Third story, I'm here moderating a panel in Indonesia at Endeavor about the personal lives of some of the most respected founders in Indonesia. And they started opening up. One of the founders, he had just closed his round and he was busy hustling, hiring, doing his work. His father went to got admitted to the hospital and says, hey son, come and visit me. He says, oh no, maybe later, too busy. Next call he gets was from the doctor, your dad's in a coma. Dad passes away a few days later, never got to speak to the son. The stories go on that panel and it gets worse. One of the founders, to just alleviate stress, he turned to whiskey. And the whiskey stuff got more deep and he had to remove his gallbladder. The very same founder came home one day and found that the wife has already packed all the bags and was ready to leave the family. So he's there fighting to grow his startup and at the same time fighting to keep his family and his health in check. These are real stories, and these stories are not just their stories. This is my story, that's your story, it's all of our stories together. You guys read this article? The Psychological Price of Entrepreneurship. It is Inc.com's one of the most shared articles in the history of Inc.com. Also one of the longest, I was scrolling till my finger broke. But it's a really good article, I read it twice over. Great article, and it's widely shared because every day, each of us in this industry experience some amount of stress. But it's the kind of thing that we don't talk about to our investors, we don't talk about it to our staff, and we don't talk about it to other founders at all, not often enough. That's what we're going to talk about today. My observation from a VC's point of view is that the most obvious things are company stress. When you see a company has been saying, hey, can you help me hire more engineers? 6 months later, hey, can you help me hire more engineers? That's kind of stress points in terms of hiring. The companies start breaking down when you realize that key staff are leaving, they don't have a culture of retention, and eventually a company may collapse if multiple stresses lead to multiple breakdowns. It may result in a collapse of a company. But how often is it clear to a VC what personal stress points there are? A lot of founders may not want to show to the VC that they're stressed out. A lot of founders may have relationships at home break down or maybe a death in the family, or maybe a lot of personal stuff health, for example, starts breaking down. And then eventually when they collapse, it's way too late. One of the examples of symptoms of stress and breakdown on a personal note, I had different founders tell me the same thing from different countries, that they've put on 1 kg of weight per month they've started a startup. And one of them is 12 months, they got 12 kgs worth of weight. It's not like they're coordinating with each other and say, hey, let's put on 1 kg of weight together. It's not like some group effort to do this. Separate founders on their own was just piling on weight due to stress and other bad habits. So I'll say that VCs like me, I feel really, really responsible. I'm not here to tell anyone else how to do anything. I just look at this and I'm like, man, I gotta do a better job. Why? Personal stresses attribute 65% of startup failure, according to a Harvard Business School study in 2012. Fear, stress, burnout, depression, time starvation, overwhelm, co-founder conflict. These are things which are deeply personal, yet they can affect the complete breakdown of a company. So, and this is something at 500, because we invest in so many companies. Globally, we've invested now in 1,800 companies in 60 countries. Here in Southeast Asia, between Fund 1 and Fund 2, we're at 150 companies across Southeast Asia. We're worried about it. I went in to look within myself again. What are we doing wrong at 500 startups? What can we do better? We looked at the amount of companies from our main fund, first and second fund, 600 companies later, 6 years and 600 companies, 120 companies are dead. Not too bad. I mean, the founders aren't dead, thank God, but the companies are kind of written off. Founders who have cancer within the family, out of the Southeast Asia fund alone, there's 3 out of 150 companies. Founders suicide, the stat, there's a typo over here, it's not that scary. It's actually 2 out of 2,000. So simplified is 20% or 1 out of 5 companies dead. 1 out of 50 companies have co-founders with cancer. And founder suicide is not 1 out of 500. For those of you taking pictures, it's about 1 out of 1,000. 1 out of 1,000 founder suicides so far. The odds so far from our data. If this conference has 1,000 people over here, which I think it has, you take a look around you, someone may be on the brink of suicide, and you wouldn't even know. So here's what I plan to do. I knew within 500 there wasn't so much that we can do. We needed to get the help of experts. So I'd like to introduce you to 2 individuals, Dr. Daniel Cordaro and Justin Milano. Dr. Daniel Cordaro, he's a director of well-being at the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. He's also an emotion psychologist, PhD at UC Berkeley. And when he was asked to mentor for the highly acclaimed Elite X Prize, he was rated the #1 mentor globally. Now, his co-founder, Justin Milano, he is a founder like many of us over here. His company, Trip Alerts, was acquired by MMG worldwide, and he spends his time now as an executive coach. One of the companies, Thrive Market, who he coaches, they raised over $100 million in the first year to take on Amazon, Whole Foods, and Costco. So the both of them teamed up to create this for a lot of us. It's an organizational awareness assessment. Any founder can use this, can take this test and immediately discover, in terms of the nature and the quality of their stress, which areas are they stressed about? What needs fixing? What is critical? What is unstable? What's borderline? And what's stable? We had our own startups from the 500 Southeast Asia, aka 500 Durians portfolio, do this. Over 30 companies have done this test. And we've discovered some insights to benchmark Southeast Asia 500 startups versus global with some shocking results. I'll just name a few. There's a lot, but I'll just name a few. Like the first one is that, pleased to know that stresses about product market fit of their core products, stresses about long-term viability of their business model is less compared to global. But the part which is shockingly more stressed out of is a category that they call self-compassion. Apparently, it seems like Southeast Asian founders are more likely to give themselves a lot of crap for doing things wrong. Maybe they mucked up a sales meeting or didn't get funding from a VC. They're like, oh man, I could have done better. That really sucked. I must be a lousy founder. So there's a lot of self-beration. The self-compassion is much lower compared to the global index. So I asked Dan and Justin at Good Startups, why is that the case? How can we help our founders love ourselves more? And my insight is that inside each of us, there may be an Asian parent lurking. It could be that our upbringing from our tiger mom or Asian father, we've been carrying that into our adulthood and giving ourselves a lot of crap. Maybe it's like, oh, so I hear you raised a Series C. What happened to the Series A again, right? So it's like there could be a lot of situations where this kind of unwanted kind of familial dynamics are kind of bleeding in. I don't know. But right now for Dan, Justin, and us at 500 Startups, we're collaborating on digging up more insights. And if you're interested to dig more, we'll be publishing some of it on goodstartups.com/500. 15 minutes is all it takes for you to evaluate your levels of stress, the quality of your stress in your company. Your team members can take this test as well, and you can identify for up to 22 key awareness metrics for yourself. Now, if you look at that quality of stress that you have maybe last week or right now, and you ask yourself, can I live with this for the next 6 years of my life? That's an important question. Because if you can't live for 6 years with this quality of stress, it might not be enough for you to actually build a significant company. The average time it takes to become a unicorn is properly measured at 6 years. Within 500 startups, some of our largest companies, Credit Karma at $3.5 billion, Twitter, which IPO'd at $4.5 billion, all the way to Ipsy and Vungle, which has hundreds of millions of revenues and they're profitable. They took up to sometimes 8 years for them to get to where they're at. Tech in Asia this year, it's the 5th year of running events. The Southeast Asia ecosystem is still new. How many of us have the lasting power, especially when we're breaking down because of stress? I would like to say that we need to look at other entrepreneurs who deal with it very well for inspiration. So within our portfolio, Anthony Tan, the founder of Grab, he's always been an inspiration for me into dealing with stress. He has maintained his physique, his fitness, and his health along the years as Grab grew to a multi-billion-dollar company. His family life with his newborn son, his wife, and he goes to church every Sunday. He's got this kind of really holistic foundation where he scaled himself equivalent to the way he scaled his company. In this picture, me and Anthony we're talking to Surey of Carousel, and if you notice in this picture that the weight of Anthony's triceps has toppled the table in his direction. The bulk of his bicep and his deltoid is invoking fear in Surey. He looks afraid. He's like, oh my God, this guy doesn't have sleeves. So I would say that if you think that it's difficult for you, you have to sacrifice your personal life, your health and relationships to build a billion-dollar company, you can just look at examples like Anthony and Grab to see that that's absolutely not true. Now with that in mind, here's what us at 500, especially 500 Durants, what we're doing more actively. We're trying to create more human connections between our founders to create peer circles. We want to be 500 strong because we want to be multiple chains that tie each other together. We may not be there to help founders out directly all of the time, but founders can be there to help each other out. Secondly is that we are giving active feedback to good startups, which is the one that the company that Dan and Justin put together to help all of us. We're giving them a lot of feedback to co-create some programs that can help founders. So they're launching this one program called the Breakthrough Program. It's like a personal life management accelerator. So you're not trying to accelerate your company, you're trying to accelerate yourself. So a few 500 startups companies have signed up for this. It's going to be a virtual program. You can check it out over here. And for us, we also want to make peer circles more available to founders even outside of the 500 portfolio. So this is like a brand new thing in the sense that traditionally, our accelerators were only for companies that we have taken equity stake in or quote unquote invest in. But here we launched 500 Kobe, which is a program in Japan. It is a 10-week program where entrepreneurs around the world, no fee, no equity, they come together to get growth hacking, to really bond with each other, and to work with different experts, global founders, and VCs in the 500 network for them to get to the next stage. This is free. There is no equity stake at all. You can apply for this at this address, 500kobe.com. For Kobe Bryant, I know I put his picture over there. He is not part of the program. He's not a teacher at it. He's not participating in it. I just put it there because you kind of like 500 Kobe, you can associate it. So he's not going to be in Kobe, but you can be in Kobe. So you can apply over here and check it out. So I know I spun through a whole bunch of links this time around, and we've got, so you can take a picture of this if you want to get more information about this theme. But I ask of you only one thing as I end this conversation here, or rather start this conversation here, is that a lot of our success in our life is not really, I would argue that's not worth dying for, and you don't want to also sacrifice other people in the process. And if you really want to scale a large company, you got to think a lot about scaling yourself. And if you can make an agreement with your staff, with your team members, with your investors, with your best friends, with your partners, your spouses, to let them know when things are bad and to seek help, I would say that you're in a much better chance to succeed. So in closing, founders, scale your companies, And please remember to scale yourself. Thank you very much.